Hello there. Ever since Britain left the EU, London has viewed the English Channel, what we call the Sleeve Channel, as international waters. This means that looser rules on working conditions on the ships apply to ferry traffic, to the detriment of French providers. The dispute is now fought at the highest levels. In France, resistance is forming against dumping competition from Great Britain for ferry services across the English Channel. The French Secretary of State for Maritime Affairs, Hervé Berville, recently announced at a meeting with ship owners that the Ministry of Transport wants to reach an agreement with the new British government on a common framework against social dumping as quickly as possible. The social dumping practiced by some channel shipping companies is unacceptable. These players are fighting a deadly battle, said Berville. France will increase the control of the ships in the short term. The focus of the protest is the British ferry operator P&O Ferries, which surprisingly laid off its entire crew in the spring and exchanged them for cheaper workers. The shipping company also operates the ferry service between Dover and Calais. As the newspaper Le Figaro reported, Irish ferries, which sails under the Cypriot flag with low-paid crews, also entered the race on the English Channel connection in spring 2021. They also work much longer at a time than the crews of the French ferries. There should be no place for companies that fuel disloyal competition and a downward spiral in prices, said the State Secretary. Since Brexit, the journey across the English Channel has no longer been an internal EU connection, and the use of foreign crews is permitted on much worse terms. Although the French ship owners doubt whether the channel between Calais and Dover, which is only 28 kilometers wide, can be considered international waters, they are primarily relying on reasonable agreements with the British side. As the shipping newspaper Le Journal de la Marine Marchande reported, the British had already drawn up a framework agreement in July to protect seafarers who regularly head for Great Britain with their ships, regardless which flag they sail under. But to go back, on February 1st in 2020, Great Britain left the EU, and on January 1st, 2021, the country left the customs union and the internal market of the EU. The transition period served to ensure that the contracts for economic cooperation did not break off from one day to the next. British representatives and EU diplomats struggled to reach a joint agreement until the last moment. The negotiations were tough, and the negotiations only ended on Christmas Eve that year. On December 30th, 2020, the British House of Commons overwhelmingly approved the Brexit trade deal. And the MEPs in Brussels voted 521 to 73 in a second reading for the EU law proposed by Prime Minister Johnson. Import changes affect trade in goods, logistics, aviation, and the financial sector. And it's still not over. We thought with the agreement it would be over, but as you have seen in my first video today, for example, the trouble with the DUP, Boris Johnson's oven-ready Brexit deal, which he praised in the highest words, which also got him the 2019 election victory, doesn't seem to be as good as he always claimed, at least not from the point of view of London. In the point of view of Brussels, it was always bad, because Brexit was a bad choice in the first place, and a gigantic mistake of the British. But that cannot be undone, and we will have to live with that, and with the shenanigans from the DUP. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.